Alright, this is a matchup I didn't expect to see ever, but yeah, here we are. The ARK GIGA versus the Skull Devil, which aka the big one, the big skull crawler, aka Ramarak or whatever. Yeah. This should be pretty interesting. I'm curious to see how this is gonna go. I'm pretty sure Ramarak's gonna win. I'm pretty sure this giant skull crawler's gonna win. I don't know why, I just feel like it is, yeah. But I'm gonna be rooting for the ARK GIGA because, you know, I feel like I'm obligated to because of how many hours I've synced into ARK Survival Evolved. And so I just feel like I gotta root for it, but I don't think it's gonna win. But hey, what do I know? Regardless, I just want to see one of these things' heads get bitten off of them. Alright, that's what I want to see. And yeah, let's just go ahead and jump right in now, shall we?
This day, the battle analysis platform will host two massive beasts optimized for battle, killing, and eating. On one end, perhaps the most notorious dinosaur in the ARK survival game series, responsible for innumerable amounts of killed players, butchered tames, and entire terror.
Responsible for killing me? I don't know how many times this thing's killed me. But then again, I've killed quite a few many of them myself, so yeah. So many shotgun shells were used.
Systems ARK's GIGA. On the other hand, the infamous reptant assassin known for killing off some of the great apes in Skull Island, the apex predator of this biome, counting on nightmarish tools to bring death and destruction to every other life form, the Skull Devil. This episode brings both animals' battle attributes and compares them head-on, compiling all data into a simulation that will bring forth the victor between these two predators in a fight to the death. The rules are simple. No prisoners, no mercy. Who will win? Find out at the end on Goji Center's Monster Face-Off.
It's fucking enraged form. I can only imagine how that's gonna go.
Before we begin to analyze these two predators, we must address the elephant in the room. Comparing a combatant from a more or less grounded science fiction universe like the Skull Devil to a video game creature will be challenging. Therefore, for this battle analysis, we will be drawing reference to the closest real-life animals, such as the late Cretaceous Giganotosaurus, to help us fill in the gaps in ARK GIGA's unknown physiology, with things such as proportionate scaling, damage forces, etc. With this in mind, let's move on to the first battle category. Number 1, Corporal Build. Using the in-game Giga size as compared to the seemingly smaller dossier.
Pretty sure the Giga may be heavier, but I could be wrong.
A-scale
it looks built a lot heavier, but what do I know?
One will ensure a pretty even fight. We'll be using the original ARK GIGA rendition, first introduced in the year 2015. Although different, proportion-wise, it still aligns well with the real-life animals in terms of shape. We'll be using the square cube law to give us a fairly accurate idea of the dimensions. Using this holotype, we find that this animal will be around 451.9 tons. Those well-versed in skullcrawler biology will know this already begins to look like an uneven fight. Skull Devil stats are frankly horrible. If there is one stat that has been consistently botched when it comes to movie monsters, it's weight. The small ones are too heavy and the bigger ones are too light. In the comics, skullcrawlers are given stats that are from 40 to 100 tons. Way too heavy for the small ones and too light for the big one. If we use the 40-ton juvenile to figure out the weight of the big one, we get a preposterous 6,812 tons. To fix this, and to get an accurate reading for this fight, we'll teach Legendary a lesson on how to properly estimate an animal's weight, using a 3D model and plugging it into volumetric analysis. For the kids watching, this is basically taking a 3D model of the subject and asking the computer to calculate the volume of space in the model. Then, if you know the volume and density, you can work backwards and estimate the mass. For the skullcrawler, we get a weight estimate of 447 tons. And as it turns out, these two are now almost the same weight. Using the official and inaccurate weight metric would heavily rig the outcome of the battle to one side. Posture-wise, depending on how these animals are holding themselves, the skullcrawler will have a wider stance, but will be able to stand shorter or taller than a neutral stance Giga, whereas the theropod will have a height advantage if reared up. For this category, and given that both are around the same weight and have fluctuating postures, I'll settle this as a draw for both
Yeah, with the arguments present, yeah, I'd say it's pretty decently even now.
But does one have better armor than the other?
Probably.
Let's find out. Number 2, Armor. Those that play ARK and tried to tame a Giga before, or fought one, will know that this fella can take a monstrous amount of abuse.
Oh, yeah. Yes, it does. Anytime I had to go out and kill one of these things, because you gotta, like, kill them to, like, fight a boss, because you gotta, like, take, like, a Giga card. You gotta, like, get at least 2 to fight the dragon on alpha mode. Oh, it always takes, like, 300 fucking shotgun shells just to kill this thing. And you gotta, like, trap it somehow, or just lead it in the fucking water, where it just decides to be absolutely brain dead, because they go absolutely brain dead in the water for some fucking reason. I don't know why. It just... I don't know. That's a question for the game devs and not me.
Use. For this combatant, we have to moderate between in-game mechanics versus what goes on in the lore, which results in this thing being a living siege engine, capable of battering down walls and crunching through powerful armor. This body would have to withstand the blowback of all these forces. After all, every action does have an equal and opposite reaction. Anatomically, we see that the body is covered by relatively small scales with dense muscle underneath, the spine being the exception with reinforced plates of keratin and ridges. The real-life Giga also had similar features. Fossils from the closely related Sauroniops indicate that Carcharodontosaurids had exceptionally sturdy skulls to tank impacts. Not only good to keep the skull in good shape from the force of its own jaws, but it's also been suggested to be used for shoving and ramming to stun enemies. ARK's version can presumably be a more exaggerated version of this to reinforce both ramming and biting, giving an in-universe explanation for why it can break stone structures. This even explains why in the ARK lore the Giga was capable of withstanding boulders.
And I was going to ARK game mechanics. The thing I find funny is that the Giga can break stone, but it can't break metal or anything, but yet you have shit like the fucking centipedes that can break just about fucking anything. The Arthropluras, they can break anything, if I remember correctly. And just... and it's just fun. And it's like, how does the centipede... You know, it's probably because of the acid. That's probably why, yeah. That's... yeah, that would probably be a good explanation. And the Magmasaur, well, it burns through shit, so that's why.
Being thrown at it when survivor Mei Yin fielded her Giga, the Beast King, against the Megapithecus boss. The Gigas here can endure explosives and high-caliber weapons fire. The Skull Devil, or Ramarak, also has some notable feats when it comes to durability. Getting bashed in the head by a boulder backed by gravity and the weight of an airborne Kong and only getting staggered? Something a thick-skulled V-Rex can't really handle. We also saw the Skull Devil shrug off large-caliber machine gun fire. Sure, the rounds might have penetrated but failed to wound the animal in any considerable way. There is, however, a flaw in its defense. Although it can shrug off bullets and blunt
about the fire?
hits, slicing wounds is another matter. Kong's use of a propeller was able to critically wound Ramarak, with its skin showing absolutely no resistance to sharp weapons. ARK's Giga may have had a similar problem, capable of notably bleeding greatly by any laceration wounds from rival predators or projectiles. Its thickest armor is restricted by location. The thickened layers of armor along its back and the thick skull provide this animal with the best protection. In the Skullcrawler's case, the best protected area of its body was its head, with the rest of the hide working like Kevlar padding, great at slowing down things like bullets and cushioning blunt force impact, but horrible against powerful slicing wounds. In this case, the Skullcrawler's advantage will be its posture, limiting the Giga's grabbing range to the head and upper body, as long as it maintains this posture, that is. Since both Giga and Skullcrawler can shrug off blunt impacts, are equally as vulnerable to slicing wounds, and have very resistant skulls, this will settle as another draw when it comes to armor. Things begin to...
How many draws are we at? What all does it go through again? In speed, that's actually that... Watch that be similar too. Stamina, that's definitely going to the Skullcrawler. That's, trust me, if you've tamed a Giga and you've seen the stamina on those things, the stamina on these fuckers are shit. Agility, don't know. Intelligence, that's probably Skullcrawler. Senses, don't know. Bite effect, don't know. And okay, we're just gonna get into this.
Shape a little differently as we begin to discuss number 3, speed. Finding out the speed of an in-game creature that can be ridiculously boosted will be a challenge. For this one, we'll resort to both lore and base Giga stats. Using those and certain objects as reference points, the ARK GIGA has a typical top speed of around 37 to 40 miles per hour in a straight trajectory. This actually aligns well with a scaled-up version of a real-life Giga, which would have been quick in a forward charge, but would have had a much harder time banking and changing direction than a T-Rex would. The Skull Devil has very few instances of running fast as it can in a forward sprint. However, it is seen to be as quick and agile as Kong himself, meaning these two are comparable in short
They were kind of flexible little minxes.
distances. Earlier on in the film, Kong was able to keep up with both Huey and Sea Stallion choppers. They weren't going at top speed, but these copters can consistently break the 80-mile-per-hour mark and go much faster in a straight line. Kong isn't quite as fast as this, but he is able to take them and grab them before reaching top speed, meaning that Kong, and in comparison Ramarak, could run up to 60 miles per hour and likely much faster. Even if the Skull Devil is somewhat slower than this figure due to its big, heavy build, in short bursts it's likely at least in the same ballpark. Add in a leaping ability that allows this creature to move dozens of meters per second, and we have a clear advantage. Speed in this battle will allow the combatant to wind up a heavy impact to its opponent, trigger an ambush faster, and make tactical withdrawals in combat. For this, the edge will go to the Skull Devil.
Also, definitely has a better turning radius than the Giga, because the turning radius on the Giga is absolute dog shit. Then again, that goes for many animals in ARK.
But what about maintaining top speed? Number 4, stamina. What's better, running with your legs or running with your arms? It's not just a matter of which set of limbs is doing the job, but also the ratio of multiple muscle fibers found in both. The whole body is involved in motion, and as monstrous as the skull crawlers are, real-life biology can help us understand why no other animal evolved to look like this at a large scale. One of the Skull Island creature designers once described skull crawlers as a species that evolved wrong. Sometimes described as reptiles, amphibians, or not belonging to any major group that's
Reptiles? Well, I mean, they do look like lizards without the back legs, so yeah.
Still exists in the modern day. This body shape does come at one severe cost, something that matches up what the lore states about them all the time. Borderline fearless and running at a state of adrenaline overload at the cost of starvation, and turns out these limbs may be a big reason why. One of the primary reasons why bipedal pursuit predators never evolved to run on their arms is that the arms contain a large amount of high-twitch muscles. These offer explosive power, but the muscle fibers themselves tear easily, burn through their cellular energy quickly, and are in a constant state of damage and repair that requires a crap ton of nutrients to fix. Slow twitch muscles make a good majority portion of the legs, like these on the Giga. They are the classic example of trading quick power for endurance. This animal, as well as other dinosaurs that run on their hind legs, benefit from a very specific additional muscle discussed many times on this channel. The caudofemoralis muscles go between the back of the legs to the first sections of the tail. ARK Giga's anatomy is very similar to the real Gigas, so this one most definitely has these muscles. The stiffer, less flexible tail of the Giga would work better at transferring kinetic energy back and forth between the legs as it sways with each movement. The more flexible tail of the Skull Devil, meanwhile, is not attached to its limbs, so it wouldn't assist the same way. ARK's Giga has another set of biological adaptations that will help. Theropods have an extensive air chamber network across their body, helping them expel heat, keeping their muscles and body
So forget what I said about the stamina, because I was going off of game logic.
temperature at optimal levels during strenuous activity. This pneumatic system makes it extremely easy to get around, so in essence, moving is literally as easy as breathing. The Skullcrawler may have greater explosive speed in the beginning, but if this fight turns into a chase or a prolonged slugfest, the Giga will have the advantage in the late battle stages. For this category, ARK's Giga takes the edge for stamina. Number 5, agility. This is admittedly one of the categories with the clearest divide because of the center of gravity and base stability. Not only does ARK Giga have a higher center of gravity, but also because it has its legs held closer together than the Skullcrawler. The designers of this dinosaur made its legs a bit more narrow than the real-life counterpart. This is a problem because in the event of an impact, if the Giga is not in a wide stance, it will definitely topple over. Giganotosaurus evolved from successful lineages of already huge predators living in open environments. Instead of having to maneuver through trees and dense vegetation like T-Rex's ancestors, it was built to cover a lot more open ground in the most efficient way possible. This is reflected more or less in the game as well. A Giga is often found in a mountainous area with relatively open valleys, not exactly the most dense cover. Gigas in this game aren't known.
The spawn rate it always works weirdly when it comes to them, because they always spawn in mountains for me, but I've seen like other people have them spawn like on a damn beach or something. It's like, how the hell did it spawn at a damn... Okay. Yeah.
For having the greatest turning radius either. Instead, when they get flanked, they often have to keep running forward and turn around a wide arc, or try to catch up to their target over a long straight distance. So, if they can't bulldoze through obstacles, they start having issues. Even though it does need more energy, the Skullcrawler could leverage its very efficient build quite effectively. Being pretty front-heavy and having the center of gravity right between its shoulders, this ends up being a pretty stable animal, with the very muscular and heavy tail left to whip around freely. And if it swung its tail in a specific direction, it could rapidly turn around thanks to the momentum pulling its body aside. Being closer to the ground with the arms spread out means that it will be a lot more difficult for the Skullcrawler to lose its footing, or handing. Toppling over is caused when the center of gravity gets pushed out from the base of stability, which for this animal is very hard to do. For the Giga, it is a lot easier. The only way for this animal to get flipped is if the Giga catches this animal in midair. Speaking of which, if we factor in this animal's leaping ability, which practically allows this animal to teleport from one position to another in seconds, we have a highly superior movement ability than the Giga. That's as long as stamina holds. Without needing to explain further, the highly agile and stable Skullcrawler will take its first edge in overall agility.
No surprise.
Now, let's talk about who will be making smart or dumb decisions in the midst of battle.
So I know the big one is pretty smart, but I'm actually not too sure about how smart the Giga is. So this should be... I'm putting my money on Ramurai for this one, but hey, what do I know?
Number 6, intelligence. ARK mechanics are one of those tricky things to quantify for a fair comparison, given that the in-game AI sometimes range from brilliant to outright stupid.
Yeah, it does. There's some pretty fucking stupid shit you can see from the AIs in ARK. Like, seriously, like... You can have so much fun with it, alright? You really can. It's hilarious. Especially whenever it comes to taming a Giga, because, like, there's, like... Especially, like, one of the main things I remember is that, like, having them chase you for so long, they eventually just get so pissed off or bored that they just go run the other way. Usually when you're trying to, like, shoot it with narcs or whatever, but sometimes it happens in other ways, too. And, I definitely remember my fair share of times of the Gigas acting like absolutely fucking retards.
Looking at the behavior of both the real-life animal and lore, however, ARK Giga might not be too shabby. While the brain of the real-life Giga wasn't as big as that of a T-Rex, this doesn't mean the Giga was unintelligent. Okay. The major differences in the brain are more from neuron...
Again, I'm going off of game logic. Right.
clusters meant for the sense of smell, so the difference in the portion of the cortex responsible for cognitive planning wasn't all that different. Giganotosaurus intelligence is said to be somewhere between crocodiles and mammalian carnivores, which does allow for some surprising high thought. Crocs are capable of pack hunting, planning, and even setting traps, all necessary for taking down dangerous sauropods like Argentinosaurus. Real-life Gigas would accumulate a wealth of experience thanks to being long-lived, unlike animals like T-Rex who reached the old age of 30. Gigas could live up to their 50s. Healthy individuals may have lived up to 70. But there's an in-game detail that might put all this to waste. ARK's Giga, like every other living organism, is generated in the maps by the Overseer. This might imply lack of experience, but there's a catch. Human protagonists in ARK are all generated as well, copied and modified from the past, but also retaining memories. If the program generating the animals...
I'll be honest, I don't know jack shit about the lore in ARK. I know fucking nothing, alright? And I'm not gonna be watching the show they made for it either, cause, well, I heard it was fucking horrible. And honestly, not too surprising.
Did something similar, it's likely that any generated Giga would not only have experience from its long time in the game, That being because there's almost nothing in the map that could cut its life short, and have memories of whatever original Giga template it was modified from. That is, except when it's in rage mode. In both in-game and lore, the ARK Giga goes completely berserk upon entering the enraged state.
Oh, yeah.
Now this has some massive...
What's funny about the enraged state, I was never able to actually ever get a Giga into enraged state, unless it was my own fucking Giga. Because, like, I'd be, like, fucking around with my friends, and I'd be, like, we'd be shooting at each other with shotguns, and then, like, I remember accidentally shooting a Giga, one of our Gigas, with the shotgun, and then the thing just fucking enraged and started killing everyone, and I was just like, oh my fucking god. And then there was one time where I shot one, whatever, it was just straight up on purpose, and and then it just went in rage mode. I don't remember why I shot it on purpose. I think it just pissed me off or something. I don't know. But that did happen, and yeah. And the only other time I've ever been able to get a Giga to enrage is whenever I got an army to fight the King Titan, because of course it's going to enrage them. Why wouldn't it? Well, the ones that survived the first hit, that is. Because a lot of them sure as fuck didn't.
Critical benefits that will be discussed later, but it means that all strategy has gone out of the window, except mere hunting instincts. Even a tame Giga raised from birth that is loyal will turn on its caretaker.
Oh, yeah.
The Skull Devil also has great experience to draw back from, this one specifically having a lot of battle experience under its belt, having survived and struck the decisive blow that won the Skullcrawlers the war for Skull Island. Temporarily at...
And he, well, yeah, temporarily. Then he did kill Kong's parents, or at least I think it was, or was it? I don't know. I don't know.
Least. These animals by default are intuitively fixated on their objective, which is hunting and eating. However, this adult version is shown to pause and think. Examples are showing cognition by not acting berserk, at least in the beginning of the fight, and stopping and looking at Earl Cole with suspicion instead of lunging in and attacking mindlessly. To be clear, in both the film and book adaptation, Ramarak did take pause before he attacked. In the book, he actually decided to bite down only to get blasted, but survived nonetheless. In combat, especially against big animals, Skullcrawlers do know how to target certain weak areas of their prey, such as aiming for the neck and head many times, disabling limbs, and knocking things off balance. This will be more or less easy to figure out against an animal who will have more trouble keeping its balance. Whereas the Giga has decades of battle experience, the Skull Devil potentially has centuries to draw from. And it doesn't seem to suffer from some of the impetuousness of its younger counterparts. Therefore, the Skull Devil takes another close edge when it comes to battle intelligence.
No surprise there.
Number 7, senses. Detecting your enemy is just as important to any engagement as fighting them. A clever ambush might win the day, whereas a botched one might lead to defeat. One thing mentioned in official factoids is that these have a lot in common with snakes. Inside snakes, we may find a reason why Skullcrawlers were really good at hunting. A forked tongue and head shaped similar to a mosasaur might reveal that this fella might have a Jacobson's organ right above the roof of its mouth. This tongue would pick up airborne scent particles and get scanned by this organ, telling it what type of animal it is and what direction it came from depending on which fork picked it up. Other material found in Monarch field guides make it sound like this species has something similar to the infrared pit sensors found in boas, pythons, or pit vipers. Possibly placed close to the dark patch in front of the actual eyes, this contains a sensor attached to visual organs which will allow the Skullcrawler to actually see heat sources. Even through water, fog, or dense dark environments, as long as you're a warm-blooded creature with a pulse, this animal will see you first. Speaking about sight, ARK Giga's vision isn't too bad after all.
Jesus.
A 2000...
I've never seen its eyes glow with the actual, I don't know what they're called. I've never actually seen the eyes like this. This is actually a lot scarier than just the pure, bright yellow shit. This needs to be what happens, actually.
In one study on the closely related Carcharodontosaurus revealed that the brain was similar to that of crocodiles in that it emphasized sight over smell. Not that it couldn't smell good, but rather not be as good as the overly powerful smell detectors of a T-Rex.
Yeah.
These guys were sight-based, with a lot of focus on telling light from dark in night vision, as well as good color vision that could potentially extend to the UV spectrum. In short, a Giganotosaurus would have way better color vision than humans. With 15 degrees of binocular overlap, this means that this animal had better forward vision and depth perception than the Skull Devil. In-game, these guys are good at spotting entities at different elevations and distances. So, here's how things are looking so far. ARK GIGA has better close-range vision. Its way of smelling can pick up traces over a long distance, but with less precision. The Skull Devil has a better mid-range detection that can compensate for poorer vision with heat sensors. So, where will these two encounter each other? Both the island and Skull Island have more or less similar topography, areas with plains, mountainous regions, jungles, and swamps. It's likely that both Skull...
that would actually, that would actually be cool if they had like an ARK map similar to Skull Island. That would actually be really cool now that I think about it.
And Giga will run into each other in the terrain that more or less matches up with what they were accustomed to. Alleyways with high rocky plateaux.
Okay, what map is this? What map is this? I want to know what map this is. Because I don't remember a map with a giant-ass cave. Is this... I actually think this is Ragnarok. I could be wrong.
More or less matches up with what they were accustomed to. Alleyways with high rocky plateaus with enough space in between to hunt and maneuver around. Here, the one who will have the edge will be the animal that can accurately pinpoint where the opponent is first. Now, the Giga will find out something is out there, but through dense or hard visibility situations, the Skullcrawler will be the one to set up a better ambush. Whether the Giga will survive this initial attack is another matter. Since the Giga won't be able to fully engage until he sees Ramarak, the Skullcrawler takes this edge in senses. Number 8, Bite Effectiveness.
Now,
Since
this I'm actually interested in, because I feel like the Giga takes this one, but I could be wrong.
both animals stood at a draw when it came to armor, there might end up being a stark difference and hence a clear winner of this edge. While the real-life Giga did not have the jaws of the T-Rex, it still isn't to say that its jaws weren't powerful. Bite marks and evidence of diet show that even smaller animals like Allosaurus were capable of breaking and crunching bone. Giganotosaurus had the most powerful bite of any carnosaur thanks to being both the largest and robust. Scaling up to ARK's version, and we have an absolute monster of a bite that can both in-game and in lore one-shot a major portion of the animals that are found on the island. Scaled up from the real-life animal, ARK's Giga would have teeth that are almost 3 feet long from gum to tip, and double if you count the root. This type of teeth, called zyphodont dentition, is why they would have inflicted a target with horrific wounds and loss of blood. Hence the Nash effect seen in-game. This is just an exaggerated version of the real-life specialization. While Giga's teeth weren't meant for clamping and crushing like a T-Rex, this type of tooth comes with the benefit of being able to repeatedly bite down multiple times in rapid succession, just like in the game. Serrations on the front and back of each tooth make each the equivalent of a hacksaw that can pierce, bite, and slice. Consider that the comparatively weak bite forces of animals like the Komodo can cause catastrophic tissue damage with these kinds of teeth. This Giga not only has more, but it's got the biggest and strongest set of jaws possible for this sort of bite. How strong? These can shatter stones in-game, so these teeth are not only sharp, but tough. If pressed violently and fast against any surface of the Skullcrawler, one who, by the way, is specifically vulnerable to this kind of damage, will cause nothing but serious laceration injuries. And the lag between bites is going to be relatively short. But can the Skullcrawler bite back effectively? Let's find out. As covered previously, Skullcrawlers don't exactly have a shabby bite by any means, but they aren't necessarily outstanding. These kinds of jaws were some of the primary ways of dismembering most of the great apes in the island, and the adolescent Kong did knowingly try to avoid direct bites as much as possible. Still, he was able to withstand bites to the arms without catastrophic injury. Granted, the fur did help a lot in this. The jaws on the crawler resemble animals like the python, which focus on snagging flesh, and those of a penguin with the larger teeth or papillae in the center row.
It's still crazy to find out the fact that this is what the inside of a penguin's mouth looks like, because it's like, damn. Like, you look around, you look at them furs, and you think that they're just fucking stupid, but then you see the inside of the mouth, and it's like, holy shit, this could be in a horror movie.
Pointing to the back of the throat. It would cause nasty business if it managed to get its mouth around and push something down. Bites to the face, snout, limbs, and tail might be hard to pry off without taking something with them. Which is why Kong had to pry the jaws back open whenever he was trying to shake it off from biting its neck, lest he got his throat yanked out. Skullcrawler jaws were made to grip, grasp, and hold, making it easy for prey and flesh to slide right in. Because the teeth are not pointing straight down, this means bite force from the jaws will not be used to its full potential. Used against the broad frame of the Giga, it really wouldn't do the required damage to kill, unless it was aimed at the throat coupled with a very good grip. Because the Giga has a much higher laceration effect and is also capable of delivering these fatal bites much faster, the Giga takes a critical edge when it comes to bite effectiveness.
I figured it would.
Number 9. Auxiliary Weapons. Bites will not be the only way to deliver damage. The Skull Devil has an extremely adept body for grappling and restraining. Not only are these the limbs used for movement, but also capable of grabbing and manipulating the opponent, tipped with a few meter-long claws that are both robust and hooked, the optimal shape for rending flesh. The longest one on the third toe in this case will probably cause some nasty gashes almost every single time it climbs on top. Perhaps the most notable of these additional sets of weapons is the tail. Taking up half of its length, this prehensile limb can pick up animals as heavy as itself and hurl them over large distances.
I'm just imagining a picture of this thing like just choking the shit out of the Giga.
This type of weapon will be something this Giga has never
With the tail specifically.
encountered before. The animals that he dwells with don't really have this specific type of prehensile tail. Instead, upon seeing it, the Giga will register this as something that could potentially be used as a whip, which is something the Skullcrawler does use this for. This adult one has bony barbs that will make each impact a lot more painful and capable of cutting through skin. Next, we do need to bring up the tongue of this animal, which is somewhat of a strong limb as well, similar to the tail. Able to extend up to 10 to 15 meters fully extended, this tongue is capable of wrapping around limbs, potentially used for disbalancing, trapping a
That'd be
victim.
another image to see this thing choking the shit out of the Giga with its tongue. That's... I feel like there's a sex joke you can make in there somewhere. I don't know how, but I just feel like there's a sex joke you can come up with that.
And bringing it closer to its mouth. This arsenal of weapons just gets bigger. For a very resilient animal like the Skullcrawler, one of its key strengths in its anatomy can be used as a very effective weapon: its skull. Being able to resist blunt impacts to the head means that this head can also be used as a weapon. It's already been established that this animal is faster than the Giga, so this head, backed up by its estimated body weight at the speed mentioned already, could produce a hit of anywhere around 1,690,414 psi. That is a force spread amongst its relatively flat head surface area. However, if it does manage to connect, this sort of force will break ribs, assuming it winds up a fast enough charge, and the Giga just sat there and took it.
Yeah.
ARK's Giga does not really have the massive arms its opponent brings to the arena, but they aren't completely useless, being longer than the paleo-accurate Giga. They are pronated, a less optimal hand orientation for grabbing things, but in this case are useful because they are longer and will help in getting up faster than a shorter arm would. Moving down, we find some mighty legs with claws that can do some serious damage. Once stomping on an animal, the Giga would technically be able to keep an animal pinned down thanks to its weight distribution, and then curling the claws into the victim, causing some fatal wounds, while being in an optimal position to use its jaws. Similar to the Skullcrawler, the Giga will be able to use its head for ramming. Carcharodontosaurids are notoriously dense-headed. The lacrimal bones above the eyes and the roof of the skull were very thick. Headbutting, slamming the head into the opponent, and shoving were all useful maneuvers used to stun prey. Even though we really don't see this in-game, remember that animals in ARK attack the same way over and over due to game engine limitations. Lore-wise, they would be a lot less restricted. Both animals have at least one grappling capability and ramming maneuvers. Both are resilient and tank a lot of damage. The Skullcrawler in this case has a larger array of weapons and options to choose from depending on the situation. One to strike at a distance, throw an opponent, keep one in place, all this at the expense of balance. For this category, the edge will go to the Skullcrawler.
Once again, no surprise.
The stats for each combatant are taking shape and are almost ready to meet in the arena. Before unleashing them, we will bring up the X Factor. One attribute that both animals share is the ability to endure massive amounts of punishment, and entering a frenzied berserk state with two very different results. Skull crawlers of any size are driven by a perpetual state of ravenous hunger and adrenaline overload, explaining why they are very resilient to pain and injury. In their case, the longer the battle goes on, the more erratic and unrestrained they get. This was the case of Ramarak, as he went for a really risky battle methodology against Kong, which at the end cost him his life over something silly. This does have benefits, such as shrugging one wound after another when other animals may tend to retreat. Now, yes, the Skull Devil did show that it could at times moderate this behavior, or taking its time once the ape was restrained, but after taking successive damage like getting slashed, pummeled, and Weaver blowing up its eye, the Skullcrawler seemed to kind of lose it. Being obsessed with something to eat after a knockout, Kong managed to turn this seemingly strong weapon into a very detrimental weakness. We've been making mention of Giga's rage mode frequently, but it's now time to study it a bit more. This in-game mechanic makes this already aggressive apex predator into a force of pure unstoppable destruction. After taking a large amount of damage in rapid succession, especially by blunt force of bad falls, the Giga's physiology triggers its infamous rage mode.
Yeah, I forgot that's another thing that triggers it is the fucking fall damage.
In this state, any prior injuries are still there, but its body overrides any pain and does not slow down this dinosaur at all. This doesn't end here. Game stats themselves give the animal roughly double its initial attack power. In the lore, Mei Yin directly states the Giga grew noticeably stronger when enraged. This proved critical when she fielded her Giga against the might of ARK's bosses. One instance in particular against the giant Megapithecus and army of apes, it was the Beast King's enraged state that tilted the odds. Even with her impressive army of powerful creatures, Mei Yin attributed the victory entirely to the timely use of the rage ability. In this fight, if the Giga gets wounded repeatedly,
that's why they banned the Gigas from the boss fights, because they're just like, nah, too overpowered.
Or suffers from an exceptionally blunt impact, all other brain functions will be thrown out the window, all pain receptors ignored, and all cognitive power will be directed at one objective: kill everything.
Yep.
No slowdowns,
Well,
no
to be honest,
matter.
that's not what they're pretty much already like that. Well, I guess not entirely, because they don't kill every wild thing they say. I think they don't attack Rexes. I could be wrong, I don't know.
The wound, as long as it's physically able, a truly puzzling and frightening sight to see for any opponent. We are now ready to unleash both combatants in the battle arena. The Skullcrawler, with its large array of weapons and agile build, wins the edge in speed, agility, a close edge in intelligence, better senses to set up an ambush, and auxiliary weaponry. ARK's Giga can survive a long battle by winning the edge in stamina and taking home the very critical edge of bite effectiveness. Both animals stand equal when it comes to corporal build and armor. This battle takes place in an environment that meets both animals' preferred settings. Enough places to walk through with rugged terrain to sneak up on prey. In such terrain, the likelihood of an encounter between the Giga and Skullcrawler would be high, in a place where neither has a clear deciding advantage.
Oh boy. Alright, we're about to get into this. Oh boy, I'm still rooting for the Giga, but I'm pretty sure the Skull Devil's gonna win. Okay, I better give this thing some motivation. Okay, well, this was embarrassing. I was trying to log into ARK so I could do a bit where I tried to encourage the Giga to do well, and ARK wouldn't even open up for me at all, I guess. And I'm just gonna take this as a sign, as the Giga not even wanting to face me. Okay, this does not inspire confidence at all. Alright, well, let's just see who wins. I'm rooting for the Giga, but I think the Skull Devil's gonna get it. Alright. There we are, meeting in the trenches. Oh boy. Sneak attack on. Music's actually going hard, like, holy hell. There we go! And they're already rolling. And he's already bleeding, though. Well, you better get the hell out. I'm rooting for you, man. already got... Oh, okay, there you go. My ass blood is drinking, but... Not to mess with that mouth. Oh! There you go. Slam it to the wall. Do it again. Oh, okay, well. Oh! Nice! I still got a long ass tail, but that helps. Oh, okay. Oh, jeez. Oh. Yeah, he's going. Bro, you better shake him off. Go in rage mode already. How are you not in rage already? Okay, yes, he's slithering away, or whatever. Regardless, they're both very bloody. Are they gonna jump out of nowhere and jump scare or something? I'm gonna jump off the damn mountain or something. There he goes. Or not. He's in. Oh! Oh, here we go. Your boy's pissed. Should have been a long time ago. Hey, better late than never. Alright, now bite his head off! Our arm, that works too. Come on. Oh boy. Alright. Yeah, just tear him apart. Get him. Just get him. Let's go! Alright. I didn't like the odds.
As seen in this battle.
I didn't like the odds, but I'm glad he won, alright? I'm glad. Alright. I didn't think he was gonna do it, but hey, there we go. You know, I'm pretty sure there is some argument where, like, it could have gone either ways, and, you know, it probably could have been, but I'm just glad it went this way. Yeah.
Simulation being
which this most likely means that this is probably the way it'd go most of the time anyway, so yeah.
on terrain that hosts a neutral encounter, it is ARK's GIGA who takes the win. That said, this was a very close matchup. Both combatants have distinct advantages over one another that, in fact, if circumstances were changed, could result in the battle being very different in favor of one or the other. The attributes that ended up being the deciding factors in this battle terrain were bite effectiveness, but more importantly, the X factor. Because the Skullcrawler is better suited with the appropriate senses, this animal was actually able to pull off a successful ambush, catching the already nervous GIGA off guard.
Nervous?
Any lesser animal would have...
Nervous? You're calling this thing nervous? I don't think this thing... I don't think either of the... Well, I guess the Skullcrawler, but I don't think you can ever really... I don't think nervous and GIGA can go in the same sentence together, like, ever.
Have succumbed, but this isn't just any animal. ARK's GIGA is made different. The explosive Skullcrawler, seeing that this thing is easy to topple over, pulls its leg and knocks the GIGA on its side. Before it can move on to another body part, the GIGA's loose foot manages to inflict a nasty cut to the Skullcrawler's face. Ramarak recovers despite the deep wound, but this is far from over. The battle has just begun. ARK's GIGA gets surprised by the crawler's long reach and a tail that can strangle him. In an attempt to topple him over, the GIGA takes a wide stance and manages to shake off the Skull Devil. This tail is already registered as a threat, and a predator like the GIGA handles this with ease with its exceptionally sharp slicing bite. Angry and hungry, the agile Skullcrawler hops and pins down the GIGA and attempts to bite its back to deliver a decisive blow. This bite lands on the armored back of the GIGA, who rolls over in a desperate attempt to shake off the Skullcrawler once again. Those hands and arms have proven troublesome. Remembering that an ambush worked prior, the Skullcrawler makes a tactical retreat and sets up another surprise. In a more neutral environment, we see that both resilient animals dragged this into a slugfest, tiring the Skullcrawler faster and making it resort to more drastic tactics, such as blunt charges, which in this case ended up inadvertently activating the GIGA's rage mode. The smart thing to do would be backing off and waiting for it to wear off, but since the Skullcrawler was already hyped
up... That's actually a good question. How long does it take for it to wear off? Because I've never seen the end of it.
This wasn't going to happen. In turn, the Giga, with close to double the energy strength,
Like, all times I've enraged a Giga, it was always in a single player world, and we just logged out off, then logged back on, and then they'd just be back to normal. So I'm curious how that would work, how long it actually does go on for.
pain tolerance now
And as
moves
for the Gigas that enraged when I was fighting King Titan, well, I imagine they didn't get to live long enough before they were taken out, before it could even run out.
faster, and his blows are much more lethal, enough to knock back the similarly sized Skullcrawler, punishing it with its now more fatal bites to the muscles and tendons. The result being a handicapped animal at the mercy of a predator who won't stop biting.
Yeah.
ARK's Giga may have been the victor here, but remember, considering that in the novelization the Skull Devils were stated to be amphibious, the Skullcrawler might have had a huge advantage if the battle specifically took place in the water.
Yeah,
Even if it was hip deep, and since the Giga is notoriously slow in the water, the Skullcrawler would
Also notoriously retarded in the water too, because seriously, get one of these guys in the water and you got an easy way to kill it.
actually be able to end this battle quickly, given that it would be moving freely while the opponent was a sitting duck. Similarly, in a more dense terrain with even more obstacles, Remorak would have possibly won. Without putting these two creatures in neutral circumstances, this is one of those battles that can really only be answered with, "It depends."
Yeah. But with the whole stamina and everything, I guess it seems to go in Giga's way most of the time, I guess. But what do I know? All right, well, that was a very entertaining fight. I think that's probably my favorite. Battle face-off Goji Center's made at this point so far. Yeah, that's definitely my favorite so far. Yeah, I wasn't confident in the Giga winning, but hey, my boy pulled through, and I'm happy for him. So yeah, I rooted for the right one. All right, I'm gonna go and end the video now. So if you enjoyed it, check out the original one, which will be linked in the description below. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Have a good day, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.